folks, we're visiting today with Bill and Ashley Chouinard with Wild Blue Adventure Company and Aviators Lounge in Fayetteville, West Virginia. Bill and Ashley, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us. We're super excited.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Positively West Virginia is powered by BreezeLine high-speed fiber internet and sponsored by Highmark West Virginia, Freedom Kia of Morgantown, and Storymaker. With the help of these sponsors, we are able to share the positive business stories of West Virginians, including the one featured in today's episode.
Well, guys, it's great to have you with us, and I look forward to learning more about your business. Bill, we'll start with you, and we'll let Ashley chime in, but tell us a little bit about Wild Blue Adventure Company and Aviators Lounge. What is it? What do you do?
Yeah, Wild Blue Adventure Company. It's really the realization of a childhood dream. That sounds so cheesy, but it's true. I grew up in Western Canada with my dad as a pilot. I always read about pilots, and I mean, this was sort of the dream, and you never realize where you're going to end up. But we do aerobatic and non-aerobatic tours over the New River Gorge in Fayetteville, West Virginia, in a 1943 Boeing Stearman. So it's over 80 years old. The airplane was actually used as a primary trainer in the Second World War. So it's really a flying artifact from the Second World War. And for most people, it's a peak lifetime experience. Like it really changes people's lives and inspires them to either pursue their passion or to pursue aviation. We see a lot of that. In addition to which, we own the Aviators Lounge, which is a custom hangar home that's built into the hangar that we operate Wild Blue out of, where you can come and stay with your family, obviously access the park, but almost everybody who stays with us also then goes on an adventure in the Stearman, either the whole group, or maybe they buy a ticket for, grandpa or dad or mom or the kids. We literally fly people from ages 4 to 94.
I love it.
So it's awesome.
Now, how many folks can ride in the plane with you as your pilot?
So it's a great question. It's one at a time. So it's myself and a passenger.
Wow.
And what I love about that is it lets me as the pilot customize what you experience.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of discussion and dialogue over like, what's your comfort zone? What do you want to get on it? Do you want this wild ride?
Do you want to do a barrel roll?
Yeah, like we can do all kinds of aerobatics.
That's amazing.
Or a lot of people come and they're like, you know what? I don't even know that I want to leave the ground. And so we call it the magic carpet ride. And the Stearman, I've flown a lot of airplanes over the years, 60 some airframes. The Stearman is by far my favorite because I think it captures what we as kids imagined flying would be like the most accurately. Like it's very magical. And so we can take somebody who's very nervous and go up and it literally is like a magic carpet ride. I've had people cry out of relief.
Wow.
So many people get out of the plane and hug me because it's this really emotional experience. And I think that for me is why I love it. Like I wake up in the morning and this is what I think about. Probably the hardest part about our business is we have a 6-month season. So for 6 months out of the year, I'm kind of like, when do we get to go again? And we're actually in the process of kind of solving that and becoming more of a year-round flying destination. We'll talk more about that later.
Yeah, amazing.
And
Ashley,
hug is an understatement. Usually it's like a full embrace. And sometimes it's multiple family members. It's always different.
That's great. Ashley, do you have anything else to add to what Bill
I think that's perfect.
That's great.
That's
exactly. You did a great job.
Exactly what we do.
Yeah. So, Bill, you mentioned you grew up in Western Canada. Ashley, where are you from?
I'm from a little town just outside of Bolt, West Virginia.
Okay. Yeah. Where in the heck? What? Outside of Bolt?
Yes. If you can say it that way. Yeah. Technically, I grew up in Fayetteville, but everybody knows where Bolt is because that's the home of little Jimmy Dickens.
Oh, yeah,
so
of course.
It's easier to just say Bolt.
Yeah, Bolt.
Yeah.
All right. That sounds good. So what, Bill, where, specifically, where were you from?
How did I end up here? Yeah. So I grew up in the Calgary area. I lived in Canmore and south of Calgary on a small farm. And then I went to high school in Calgary. Fell in love with rock climbing in high school, was climbing. I met the owner of a climbing shop in Fayetteville. I met him in the Canadian Rockies.
No kidding.
And at the end of the day, there was a note on my car that was like, hey, we're going to this restaurant in Canmore. You should meet us and have a beer. We sat down, we had dinner. in the conversation, he was like, you should come work for me. I remember, Gene, don't say that if you don't mean it. And I got his phone number. About 6 months later, I dropped out of college. I moved to the United States with $300, no way to get home. I had a one-way plane ticket. Everybody in my life thought I was crazy. I got off the airplane and almost immediately felt like Fayetteville was home.
Wow.
I did leave for a couple of years. I lived in Santa Cruz, California. I worked for Patagonia and some other outdoor retail stores.
Wow.
It was great. The surfing was better in California than West Virginia, but that's it.
Yeah.
I almost immediately knew, like, okay, Santa Cruz is great. This is not home. We're going to play here for a little while, but we're going back.
Yeah.
And I've been in Fayetteville ever since, and I wouldn't trade it for anywhere.
So you guys, when did you start Wild Blue Adventure Company?
So Wild Blue Adventure Company was an opportunity that we had. It was started by people that we know in 2008.
Okay.
And operated pretty continuously up until they basically were like, this is a big commitment. We need to have a change in our lives.
Yeah.
We want somebody who loves antique airplanes, loves aerobatics. We were sort of the natural extension because I was teaching out of the Fayetteville airport with Bravo Charlie with an antique airplane and sort of teaching these old school skills that I think are so fundamental to safety and modern aviation.
And you learned those as a kid, basically.
So I did do some flying with my dad as a kid, but really I started pursuing flying when I first moved to the States. And I quickly realized that as a dirtbag rock climber, I couldn't afford to fly airplanes.
Yeah.
And so I grew up flying RC stuff. I've just always been fascinated with aviation.
Broke his arm trying to jump out of a barn because he was trying to fly.
Yeah, I mean, all the funny stories, right?
Oh, my goodness.
That's so I was working at the climbing shop in Fayetteville, and a guy walked in who had a hang gliding hat on, and I was like, that looks cheap. I could fly. And we started talking. He has become a lifelong friend. He taught me to paraglide. But then about 10 years later, he had gotten his light sport CFI so he could become an instructor to teach in what you could think of as simple, mostly antique aircraft at the time. And he taught me to learn how to fly in a 1939 J4 Cub, no electrical system for gas. I literally would show up at the airport with 5-gallon jugs of gas, and he taught me how to fly. And he taught me in a very old school way. Yeah. And I mean, this was a guy who I'd flown paragliders with all over the East Coast, was very good friends with. And it was really, it was not a business proposition. This was the passing on of the love of aviation in a way that, like, I mean, it gives me goosebumps to talk about it. It's
like the legacy.
It is a legacy thing. And it's really what we try and continue at Wild Blue. Like I said earlier, like aviation, this is what I dream of. You know, my full-time job now, I work as a flight nurse on a helicopter. So I'm in the air there. I fly corporate. I teach aerobatics. We run Wild Blue. We often joke around and we can't do it for free, but I had a customer a few years ago. I made a joke about buying a lottery ticket and they were like, oh, you wouldn't have to do this anymore. You could just fly. And I was like, no, I would do this, but I would do this for free.
Wow.
Like, this is
amazing.
Yeah. It's just like what you were talking about with your business here. It's
project,
like, it's your passion project. And it's like, I don't know. We wake up every day and I think Ashley thinks of me as sort of this guy with like these crazy dreams. My head's in the clouds. And what I love about our business relationship, but also our marriage, is like, she's my litmus test. Like, okay, she's given me freedom to dream big. I'm going to throw all the ideas out there. And then I go to her and she's really boots on the ground and very,
it's like they wrote the book E-Myth about our life.
Oh,
like
I love it. Michael Gerber.
Bill is the entrepreneur and I'm his manager.
Yeah.
And I mean, and not in the literal sense, but you have to have
it.
somebody who's kind of a dreamer, and then you have to have somebody who is
realistic,
standing on the ground, and we complement each other very well that way.
Yeah.
And usually he'll be like, this is my dream. And I'm like, you are crazy. And then I think about it for a little while and I'm like, no, we can do this.
That's
and
great.
we've done lots of things like that so far.
Dave Ramsey calls it the free spirit and the nerd. Right.
Oh, I love
That's
it.
accurate.
So I'm not calling
actually,
Ashley a nerd, but that's how he
it's
refers
true.
to it.
Yeah.
So I love it. You guys balance
And
out.
it goes back to, I think on our first date, there were a couple things that we talked about. And the third thing was, he was like, I want to buy an airplane. And I was like, that's not on my bingo card, but okay. And so it actually is like his passion for flight is really
How did you guys
beautiful.
meet?
We met at CrossFit.
Yeah.
No kidding.
I was
Yeah.
coaching
In
and running a
Fayetteville?
CrossFit
In Oak
program
Hill.
in
Mhm.
Oak Hill that
Okay.
doesn't exist anymore, at least not in the iteration that I worked at.
Yeah.
A transition to different
And-
ownership, different
yeah.
business,
And
cool.
different buildings.
Ashley was there, and I was like, "Hey, we should go out on a date. You've got an exercise physiology degree. We should talk."
Yeah.
And
I was not that
yeah.
interested, actually.
and it was great. It
And
was
we went on one date, and we've been together ever since.
Yeah.
Ashley, now you're also a school teacher.
I am.
You do that
Mhm.
kind of as your full-time job, and
Very much.
You were working
Yeah, and
with
Bill's a
Wild Blue,
flight
yeah.
nurse.
yeah. So, tell us about that? How did you get into education?
So on mine and Bill's first date, the first thing he told me that was a deal breaker and it wouldn't go any further was that he wanted to be a flight nurse. That was his ultimate career goal. And I was like, okay, whatever. And that's fine. And so after we had our daughter, my job, I was working at the gym, but I was working very weird hours because when you're a personal trainer and teaching classes, you work around other people's schedules. And so that schedule wasn't super conducive to family life.
Yeah.
And so we have 3 kids, and teaching allowed me to be on their schedule. So ultimately, that's why I got into it. We've taught group fitness for a long time together and CrossFit. And so it was very natural just to teach people in a different way. And I've kind of been there ever since. I think I've been a teacher about 10 years.
That's awesome. What grade level?
I teach 9th grade science.
All right.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you ever work in, the aeronautics, if you will, of flight into your science classes?
So I work at Oak Hill High School,
Oh,
and
yeah.
one of the classes that we have at Oak Hill High School, I don't teach it, but a dear friend of mine does, and so she teaches aerospace engineering.
Aerospace,
So
yeah.
Bill is a mentor for their class,
Aviation,
and usually
ties, perfect,
he ends up there once a year,
That's
and
awesome.
so we do have lots of kids that come to the airport too. So one of the things that is unique about our airport is that we're located right off of 19,
Mhm.
and so people come up to our fence and they watch planes taking off and land. And it's probably one of the only spaces left in the U.S. where you can not only just see these antique aircraft taking off, but like wait and talk to the pilot or ask questions. And our hangars
That's
kind of
awesome.
set up like
So
a museum.
cool.
And so people will come in and look at these old pictures or old family heirlooms that people have lent us because they don't want to see it collecting dust. They want, their loved one's story told. So they'll bring us something and ask us to display it. And, we try to find a place for it. And so we have a lot of kids, a lot of people come and say, how do I become a pilot? And Bill, helps them
it's great.
get started.
It's a really like, you asked how the business started, and it's like, at this point, I have thousands of hours. I'm qualified to go to the airlines. I really have chosen to pursue the parts of flying that I love. But people are often like, well, how did you get there? And I'm like, it was really an accident.
The most atypical way.
Yeah, I started with what's called a light sport license.
Yeah.
Again, I learned in an airplane that you had to hand prop. It didn't even have a radio. And I flew it because I loved it, and I flew it more, and then I flew more, and then I got another airplane and I flew more because I loved it. And I liken it to like you start community college courses in something you're interested in. And nearly 20 years later, I find myself with a master's or like a PhD equivalent. And I'm like, wow, I have actually learned something. And I'm still in love with it.
That's so cool.
And it's like,
What a great
who
story.
gets that opportunity? And so I feel very thankful to be where I am, but I also recognize I feel like I have this responsibility to help other people realize the path to getting to flying isn't spelled out. It's not something that most family members can help you with. It's not like a typical career path. And it can be and seem very convoluted and very cost prohibitive. And so we're constantly looking to help mentor and guide people in ways that make sense for them. And it has to be customized for everyone because we're all coming from a different place.
Yeah. And I think two things on that too. Like your dreams are a long, slow burn. So for us, Bill, I remember him saying we have to buy this hangar, and we had little to no money. And I said, what do you mean we have to buy a hangar? We don't even have a plane. Like, the plane isn't even in our thing. And so we owned this hangar for 4 or 5 years and did not have the money to afford a plane.
Wow.
But like, that was the dream.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is too, living in Southern West Virginia, there's so many opportunities that kids aren't able to reach because somebody's not standing in the gap for them. And so it's not necessarily even, I mean, obviously we want more pilots, but there are lots of other jobs that come around airplanes. So you can be a mechanic, you can, work at the airport. And so Bill kind of shows people there's more to life than
I love it.
just what you can see.
I love it. This is Positively West Virginia. We'll be right back. Stay connected with an unbeatable deal from BreezeLine. Voted best in Mountaineer Country for their reliable, high-speed fiber internet for a low cost, BreezeLine is the best gig in town. Here at Interaction Media, we rely on high-speed internet every single day to ensure we can deliver the best content possible for our clients and when we publish Positively West Virginia each week. That's why we use BreezeLine. It's affordable, fast, and they're great people as well. Learn more about BreezeLine's internet, TV, and mobile options at breezeline.com. Folks, we're back. We're visiting with Bill and Ashley Chouinard. They are the owners and proprietors of Wild Blue Adventure Company and also Aviators Lounge in Fayetteville, West Virginia. Bill, if somebody hears about Wild Blue that are watching this podcast or listening to the podcast and they were like, hey, I want to come down and fly with you guys, what does that look like? What's the experience like?
Yeah, so I feel like most of our customers have an idea. They've been to our webpage, our Facebook or Instagram, even our TikTok, and they've kind of collected some images in their head. And then they usually reach out via phone or email. And they talk to my wife. She does all the booking, which is great. And they set them up. And we have everybody come a little bit early. Usually, and now with our booking, we're booking more and more time so that I can be on the ground talking to people. And usually they walk in the door and they're like, whoa, like this is the real deal. This is the Stearman has a presence, right? Like this airplane's 80 plus years old. It was used it's beautiful.
Completely rebuilt.
Yeah. It's not original.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. The airframe is original and it is a 1943 Boeing Stearman, but yes, it's been completely restored. But it has a presence to it, and people almost immediately recognize the historical significance of it.
That's
and I love
amazing.
to go through a little bit of the history, how the Stearman was used in the Second World War as a primary trainer, how ours specifically was used to train at a British training service camp and train British pilots that were here in the United States, and then point out some things that are unique to it, like the control sticks that are in it are the original control sticks that they've been in there since the Second World War, that they're going to get a chance to fly the airplane. And so
it's awesome.
Then the next thing I really want is like a feel from them, like what do they want and what's their comfort zone? And we get a lot of really interesting, unique perspectives. I mean, I've had 80-plus-year-old great grandmas upside down in this Stearman. I've had 20-year-old people who are not sure they want to leave the ground. And we say that jokingly, but like I've literally taxied people who were like, didn't want to fly. And I'm like, you know what, let's just get in and go for a drive in the Stearman. Like listen to the engine, feel the rumble, it's like a convertible, right? Like it's really cool. And so for me, probably the most important thing is connecting with that person's intention and comfort before we leave the ground.
Yeah, I love it.
And then taking them up and meeting and hopefully exceeding that expectation, because that's where the magic is, right? Yeah. And it's really like we use that phrase peak lifetime experience, and that can kind of sound cheap, but when you connect with somebody like that, what they experience, it's radically unique. There's nothing. I've flown all these different airplanes. There's nothing like the Stearman.
And it doesn't just have to be one lifetime experience. We have people that come back every year. They love it so much they come back.
It's their birthday present or
one of my
anniversary,
favorite things that happened last year, and you will remember this, is there was a local boy who he's in elementary school and he wants to be a pilot. So his family bought him a discovery flight, which means they come in, they have some ground school lesson, they fly. And then Bill debriefs with them at the end. And he got in trouble because he didn't want to wash his hands for dinner. because he still had the stick on his hands. And it was such an amazing,
That is amazing.
you know,
yeah.
text message to get from
You-
the
you probably
family.
changed
Like,
that-
thank
that
you
young
so
guy's
much.
life.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I think
on-
so.
He's
I
got a
think
vision
so,
now of what
for
he wants
sure.
to do.
Exactly.
For sure.
Ashley,
Really cool.
talk about the Aviators Lounge. What is
Yeah.
exactly is that?
So the Aviators Lounge is a custom built home on the airport. It's located right beside our hangar, adjacent walls, but very separate. And so it's 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths.
So if somebody can come in and book a stay there.
Yes, so you can fly with us and stay with us.
All right.
But you don't have to fly with us if you don't want to, but most people do.
Yeah, but you can stay right there in the airport.
And
Yes,
watch
pretty
the
cool.
and there's an
planes and-
in-ground pool, and so the pool is open, you know, April through the beginning of November. It's
Yeah.
heated, and so lots of people love just being out there watching the planes take off and land,
Hmm.
or they have, you know, little kids and they'll get out of the pool and watch the plane take off, and they'll jump back in the pool, and you know, they'll spend a whole day.
Yeah, and
just
you're
coming in
maybe
and out.
50 or 60
Mhm.
feet from where we park the plane. So inevitably, we'll be in the middle of the day or cleaning up, and I'll like look over, and you'll see these little faces peeking
Yeah.
around the
They're
corner.
checking it out.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, come on, come check. And then mom and dad are over,
Yes.
and inevitably,
Grandparents.
I would say 80 to 90% of the people that
Mhm.
stay with us, even if they didn't know about that side of our business,
Mhm.
someone ends up flying
Mhm.
with us. And almost 100% of people at least end up in the hangar, checking the
Yes.
plane out, talking about it.
Sending
Even-
videos to
Yeah,
their dad
even
or
if we're shut
grandpa.
down
Yeah.
for weather,
Mhm.
it's one of the first
Mhm.
things, like, again, I love to share this stuff. So if we're shut down on what would have been a busy weekend and we have people staying at the hangar home, I'll tell Ashley, like,
Mhm.
tell them I'll give them the tour. Like, we'll open up the hangar, turn the lights on. The kids or the adults can sit in the airplane, make airplane noises. We can talk some stories.
Mm.
And it's really, it's
The
really
Aviators
fun,
Lounge
yeah.
isn't just another rental. You could stay in a rental house anywhere. It's a full experience, and it
Yeah.
complements
Yeah.
Wild Blue.
Yeah, it's really special.
In the heart of one of the coolest places in West Virginia, which is the New River Gorge area.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I love
Absolutely.
it. This is Positively West Virginia. We'll be right back.
Your prescriptions are designed to keep you healthy, active, full of life. At Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield, we're making vital medicine more affordable. Because when your prescriptions don't cost an arm and a leg, you can use those limbs for something more meaningful. Because life. Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield, West Virginia.
Folks, we're back with Bill and Ashley Chouinard. They are the owners of Wild Blue Adventure Company and Aviators Lounge in Fayetteville, West Virginia. It's an amazing tourist attraction. I mean, I'm saying that it's a lot more than that, but this is a destination. This is a reason to come to West Virginia, to hang out with you guys and fly with Bill. I think it's amazing. So I want to ask, you know, we've learned a lot about your business. What's one of the most interesting things, you know, maybe Bill, that you've experienced while you're up in the air with somebody? What's like, give us a
wow,
glimpse
okay.
into that, like something that stands out.
Well, let's talk about one of the funniest dynamics that we see.
Yeah,
that
let's do it,
certainly
yeah.
is hilarious. I call it the Top Gun effect.
Okay.
And so often, boyfriends, husbands, whatever, will find us and be like, "This is super cool.
Yeah.
I'm going,
Yeah.
honey. This is going to be great." And the husband and wife, or boyfriend, girlfriend, even more so, will show up. And the guys they're really excited. And the girls have a tendency, or the women have a tendency to be like, "Yeah, honey, this will be fine. Like, okay." And I can remember early on when we were doing this, I mean, we're 1,000+ rides in, so I kind of can predict how this is going to go.
Yeah.
But the guys were like, "I want to do all the tricks. I've watched Top Gun 37
everything
times
you
to
got.
prepare.
Give me everything you got."
Yeah, that's like a common phrase. "Give me everything you got. I can handle it." I'm like, "Okay, cool. Like, we'll just take it as it comes," because I've learned, like, sometimes our eyes are bigger than our stomachs.
That's right.
And
That's right.
I don't want anything in your stomach involved in this flight.
That's right, that's right.
Often the men are they're like, "Honey, you go first." And I'm like, "Okay, so what do you think you want to do?" And the ladies are often like, "Oh, just kind of whatever you think." And I'm like, "Well, do you like roller coasters?" "Oh, I like roller coasters." And I'm like, "Okay, great." So we take off, and by the end, the women are inevitably, I mean, I'm in medicine, so I can say this fairly objectively. Women have a tendency to be much tougher than us. and mentally very strong.
Yeah.
And physiologically, they do adapt to positive G-force. That's been proven better than men. And so these women will be like, drop the hammer. Like they'll get up there and they're like, first time they feel G's, they're like, this is awesome. And so by the end, I'm doing like full aerobatic sequence with them. And the way it works where we are, you can often see the last sequence. And so it sort of builds this pressure for the guys. Yeah. And they're like, oh, well, she did all the tricks. And they like get in the airplane and I'm like, now listen, you know, Greg or George or Bob, like just because that's what she did doesn't mean you have to do that. And inevitably, those are the guys who are like, no, we're going to do everything.
Give it to me. I want to do what she did.
And I have a mirror. It's a small mirror on the top wing because in the aircraft, I sit in the back seat, not in the front. Oh, and so I have gotten really good at learning people's facial expressions.
Oh, I can imagine.
And you can see as soon as the face like loses its smile and they're not looking around anymore, I immediately like throttle back and I'm like, we're going to start taking it easy. And they're like, yeah, I guess that would be okay. And so, yeah, it's just a funny dynamic that we see.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I mean, as far as there's countless experiences that I've had with people where I've had people cry because they're so anxious about going flying. Maybe they've never flown before. They've had a bad experience and they take off and the steerman's so stable. Often Ashley is pre-screened the people and we'll know. So we'll schedule them at a time of day when the winds are calmer and there's less thermal activity and it really smooths out the ride. It makes it more peaceful. And so just the relief and then the beauty, they're kind of overtaken by it. And then again, I think the hugs, right? Like we have so many people who leave and when they get there, we're Wild Blue Adventure Company. But when they leave or when they reach out to us in the future, we're Bill and Ashley. Like we really we've made friends all around the world, literally all around the world with these people that you share this experience with. And I think that for me is what keeps me coming back. Like, hopefully I'll get to do this forever.
When people fly in the Stearman too, you know, most people have an assumption of what flying is like, but when Bill turns the plane on, sorry for my layman's terms, but when he turns the plane on and the propeller hits you, the wind hits you in the face, a lot of people are holding on to the side of the plane so they can feel their heartbeats through their fingers. You get a little whiff of the exhaust, you can feel your heartbeat from your toes to your fingers to your head, and then you have the wind, and then you take off, and the wind is hitting you. It's just to put you in sensory overload. And so for a lot of people, especially women, we're so busy doing all of the things that have to be done for our families or our lives or whatever, you don't really get a full break. And we don't allow people to take their phones in the air. So it's one of the true few things that you can do that forces you to be in the moment.
Be present.
Be present. Appreciate the beauty that you see. Or maybe you're just up there counting pools in people's backyards. You know, I don't know what everyone goes through, but
you get to go over the New River Gorge and the whole area.
So we can fly adjacent to the New River Gorge because it's a national park. There is an FAA regulation that requires an air tour management plan. So we used to be able to fly directly over the gorge, but we're lucky where the gorge is narrow and we fly adjacent to it. You see the river, you see the bridge, and on some of our tours. On departure and arrival coming back in, we're able to cross over the gorge right beside the big bridge. So it's really, and that's, I think, part
doesn't affect the view.
No,
too.
I think that's part of the trigger for people is the Stearman. You could fly over a parking lot and the Stearman would be an amazing experience. But we literally fly over one of the most beautiful places in the country, maybe the world. And it's just, it's sensory overload. It's a real trigger for people to get into flow state too, which I think is what Ashley was kind of hitting at. It's like so outside your realm of normal everyday experience that you're just immediately,
no doubt.
Yeah, you're not thinking, you're just taking it in, it's awesome.
And one of the best ways to see the river is by air. If you've ever gone rafting is amazing. It's like, it makes you feel so small, you know, seeing how big everything is. And so giving the bird's eye view. I tell people all the time, the two best ways to see West Virginia
are on the river or in this airplane.
Yeah.
And I think the open cockpit and
Yeah.
where we fly does.
What's it like?
ring
You
true.
mentioned like a convertible. You know, is that the sensation you get? Like is it windy? Is it noisy?
Yeah. So that's a great question. And yeah, I would say that's often how we describe like how to dress if it's a cooler day. You know, people are like, how should I dress? And Ashley uses this analogy, and I think it's very true. It's like kind of like riding on a motorcycle.
Yeah.
You are protected. You're not necessarily in the wind. You can put your elbows out or put your hands out the side and kind of fly your hands along. But you are behind a windshield in a cockpit.
That's cool.
And so you're both exposed and protected, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, of
You're
course.
obviously
Yeah,
much more exposed than you are in a
described it perfectly.
conventional airplane.
Yeah, it's you know, I guess the question is like, how fast are you going? Is it?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, so the Stearman really can cruise between 90 and 100
No
miles
kidding.
per hour.
Wow.
But we really throttle back. We're usually 85 to 90. We're not going anywhere. It's a little easier on the equipment. We're always
Yeah.
babying the airplane.
Yeah.
And then for aerobatics, we get going between 120 and 140 miles an hour. So there's quite the
That's
difference.
awesome.
And we remain about
It's like a NASCAR.
Yeah, about 1,500 feet above ground level for all of our aerobatics. So we start between 25 and 1,500 feet above the
What's a
ground.
typical-
Cruise speed
go ahead.
feels like you're floating
Yeah.
Yeah.
too. You
Very
know, we
much.
tell
Like
people
90 or whatever.
Yeah,
you
it's
drove faster
barely
at some
moving.
point on the way to get here
Yeah.
than
Probably.
what you're floating
That's,
in the
that's
sky.
super cool. How long is a flight typically?
So we do 20, 40, and 60-minute
Oh, wow.
flights. And so each one sort of covers a different geographical part, and that's description that we can give over the phone, but is
Sure.
also all on all our media
Yeah,
sources.
Yeah.
And then if you come and you've flown with us before, like we have people who've flown with us before and they're like, all I want to do is aerobatics. And we'll go to the aerobatic area that we use and we'll just climb up, do aerobatics, climb up, do aerobatics.
That's cool.
And then other people live somewhere nearby and they're like, I want to see my house. So we're
Oh, wow.
happy to
That's neat.
customize it.
Yeah.
But our prepackaged flight routes highlight the beauty of the area. So we go to Thurmond, we see the big bridge, we go to Hawksness, we go to Kanawha Falls, or we can go all the way to Summersville Lake and fly the entire Gauley River drainage,
Oh
meet
my
up with
gosh.
where the Gauley and the New come together, then fly upstream along the New all the way to Thurmond. So you literally get to see all of the whitewater in the area.
That's amazing.
Yeah, a big part of the climbing
Super
in the
cool.
area. And I tell people, you know, what we're going to see in the next hour, because that's our hour-long
Yeah,
package,
yeah.
that would take you 3.5, 4 hours on the ground.
Yeah.
And then I've got all the like funny, like kind of, I
Dad
call them
jokes.
raft guide stories,
Dad
but yeah,
jokes.
there are lots of dad jokes and like raft guide stories because they've been telling the story of the area for years.
Yeah.
And we're friends with a lot of the people in that
Yeah,
industry
That's cool.
and they tell the story in a great way that we like
Yeah.
to share.
It's almost like the old folklore, you know, just being able
Absolutely.
to tell
Oh,
stories
yeah.
and share
Yeah.
anecdotes and things like that. Now, how do you get the word out about your business nowadays? I mean, you started in 2015, 2016 with Wild Blue. How do you get the word out there? How do you what's the best way for?
We started in 2015 or 2016 with Bravo Charlie.
Oh yeah, okay.
Wild Blue came in 2019.
2019. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Good.
I think so we really have on the aviation side, two things that we're
Mhm.
doing. One, I do a lot of specialized instruction. So in addition to teaching in the Stearman, I do aerobatic and spin training and UPRT training is what it's called in an airplane called a super decathlon.
Mm.
A lot of that is word of mouth. That's very specialized training that nobody else really in the state is offering.
Mhm.
And within the aviation community, I think over the last few years, we've really developed a reputation for doing a good job with that.
Yeah.
So most of the people that reach out to us about that have heard from someone like, hey, Bill's doing this. He does a good job. Reach out to him. And then we talk and hopefully it's a good fit. The other side of the aviation program is Wild Blue, giving rides to people that are either local, who often have heard of us, or seen us, and then been like the Stearman's a unique thing. You see it flying through the sky. You're like, what's going on here? And very quickly in town, if you ask any questions, they're going to point you in our direction. I've
Yeah,
lived there a
that's
long
great.
time and we've got a lot of friends.
Got a good
The
reputation.
town
Yeah.
of Fayetteville
Is awesome.
Yeah, Fayetteville CVB and the new River Gorge CVB, Visit Southern West Virginia. They all do a great job of promoting the area.
Mhm.
West Virginia tourism has been killing it lately. So, we get a lot of people that come because they've seen us there. Our social media is really for fun. I mean, obviously, you always want people to call you and book flights, but we just try to let people know, hey, we've got this good thing. You should come check it out.
I love it.
Yeah.
You mentioned the CVB there in Fayetteville. What about the Hive? You guys are part of this entrepreneurship.
With
They've
West
been great.
Virginia Hive.
Yeah, West Virginia Hive. Can you talk a little bit about that, Ashley, and your experience?
Yeah. So West Virginia Hive, in 2023, we were looking to kind of develop our business. We had just purchased the property, acquiring the Aviators Lounge, and we had started events. We do events on occasion. And so we knew we kind of needed to take the house end of our business to the next level. And so a local friend connected us to the West Virginia Hive, and we met Mary Legg, who is our business advisor. And she was like, you guys are on the right track. There are lots of things that West Virginia Hive can do for you. And one of them is, different classes you can take. And so we applied to get into this one class, the Communities of Healing, but there was no guarantee we would get in. So it was in the middle of our 2023 season and life was super busy. We applied and then didn't really think anything about it. And then in the middle of July, Bill shattered his ankle in a paragliding accident. And so I don't know if you've ever been married to a pilot who breaks his leg in the middle of July, but that means your season is pretty much over. And so for a seasonal business, it was devastating for me overnight. Bill is always annoyingly positive, and so he had a much different take on life, and that's a story for another day. But so we spent all night, most of the next day, at the ER in the hospital. And when we got home, after, it was confirmed that his leg was a mess, we got accepted into this class that the West Virginia Hive had. So we were like, okay, let's check this out.
Okay, universe.
And we're
listening.
listening. And so, so we just kind of started taking classes at the Hive from there and learned about some technical assistance through those classes. And so I think the best thing the West Virginia Hive does is it lines up all these doors for you, and you have to decide which door is right for you to walk in through. You have to be willing to take the step to go through the door, but anything you need help with business-wise, like they've got somebody they can connect you with.
I love that.
And
for
so-
coaching and mentoring and
awesome.
advice.
Everything,
And the cool thing about that, Ashley, is that, is entrepreneurs, as small business owners here in West Virginia, one of the things we are challenged with is that oftentimes we feel like we're alone, right?
Yes.
We're isolated, but here is with the West Virginia Hive, you've got a cohort of people that can help you. They're there to
and they
provide
want
services.
you to be better,
Right.
like they encouraged us to apply for the Goldman Sachs 10KSB program, and I never would have. And Mary kept saying, you should do this, like you're a good fit for this. And I always take Mary's advice, but Bill will laugh at me because I just shrug my shoulders. I'm like, whatever, maybe we'll get in, maybe we won't. And we did, and I'm glad that she pushed us to do that, because you're right. Like, as entrepreneurs, when we went into our first 10KSB meeting, we all have the same problems. They're just all, they manifest differently, but we all have the same problems. So it's nice not to feel like you're alone.
Yeah, that's awesome. What's the long-term vision for your company, Bill?
Yeah, I think, again, we sort of have the two divisions. Long term, on the aviation side, we want to continue operations with the Stearman, but we really want to expand into 12 months of operation. And that's going to involve the purchase of another aircraft and full-time year-round aerobatic instruction and ride availability, obviously. But I love sharing the joys of being upside down in an aircraft, but also it's a often neglected part of modern aviation training. So the reality is our ability to engineer safer and safer airplanes has reduced our ability or our need for good basic flying skills. It's kind of like a car. If you think about a car from 30 years ago that didn't have anti-lock braking, you had to learn how to brake in a way that didn't just lock up your tires and make you slide off the road.
Right.
Now, kids don't learn that. Why would you learn that? It's an obsolete skill.
Yeah.
But what if your anti-lock braking fails? Aviation is similar. We have engineered safer and safer airplanes. It's never been a better time to learn how to fly as far as that goes. However, when emergencies happening or are happening, your ability to react to them with basic fundamental skills that really are best learned in the environment that I teach in are crucial to that having a good outcome.
Yeah.
And so I am sort of tirelessly promoting that kind of training and the fun that goes with it. I mean, ultimately, you now are in charge of a customizable roller coaster, mild to wild, whatever you want.
Amazing.
And then there's this built-in safety factor that we're teaching people. And that's really a driving force for me for our expansion.
Absolutely. Ashley, one of the things that I like to talk to our guests here on the show is about leadership. You know, you guys are both leaders. You're leading your company. You're a teacher. You're leading young minds full of mush, training them. You know, when you think about an important trait of a successful business leader today, what comes to mind?
For me, it would be growth mindset.
Talk about that.
Yes. So Bill and I we complement each other really well. I said a minute ago, and I do mean it with love, but Bill is always positive about everything. And I am the litmus test, which is what he said. And so there are times where you feel like, oh, maybe we don't have enough money, or maybe we have to do this, or maybe we have to do that. But that's a fixed mindset. And so if you can just expand it and say, like, things aren't good or bad, they just are. It's not personal. This is what happens in business. It really changes the way your central nervous system operates, and it makes you a much happier person. Your problems don't change. Your problems are still there, but just how you view them.
You start to see opportunity where before you saw roadblocks. And that's something we've learned is really key. Like, hey, like, you broke your leg. And that's a problem for flight operations. But what it's not a problem for is expanding our knowledge base and our connections and our relationship. And
it took me a long time to be able to say that Bill breaking his leg was an opportunity. First of all, but it's true.
Now a year and a half out, we're like, that was crucial in making us better. And obviously, when you're getting pins and rods put in your leg, that's hard to see.
Absolutely.
But it's been great.
And the other thing I would say is that you don't have to be right all the time. Like, you can still think you're right, but you don't have to be right or have someone say, yes, you're right, I agree with you. You don't have to be right all the time. And I say that, you know, as my husband, my partner, I say that as, you know, with community involvement, it's okay to have difference of opinions and stay true to yourself, but you don't have to win the argument all the time.
So is the next step to that, like, what if somebody's out there listening to this podcast and they're thinking, wow, these guys are living their dream, right? They've got multiple revenue streams. They've got all these things that they're doing. They're, you know, having a lot of fun in the business. What kind of advice would you give to somebody thinking about starting their own business here in West Virginia? And I'd like to hear from both of you.
Yeah, that's a great question. For me, it would be find something that you're passionate about. Find something that you wake up in the morning and you're already obsessed with it, and figure out how you can create a job around that. And a lot of people are like, don't make what you love your job because you won't love it. And my answer to that would be, maybe then you don't love it. Right? Like, if it's really something you're driven to do and you're true to that passion, that is really powerful, because you never have to look for motivation and you fall in love with the process. You know, as somebody who's developed a business from something probably very small into something that's really impressive. Like, there are a lot of days where you're not sleeping a lot.
That's right.
You're not doing any of the things outside of that obsession that you want to do. The bank account doesn't look so good. All of the things. But if it's what you're in love with, like, I don't need to wait till it pays off. It's paying off right now.
Yeah, and I think that's important. You know, you talked about a growth mindset, and I also believe that, you know, like, just the way you view work, right? Do you have to go to work, or do you get to go to work? Right. Do you, you know, and I think about this a lot of times, is like, you know, I run to work. I can't wait to get to work. When I wake up, I'm working. You know, as soon as I wake up at 5 a.m, I'm going, because I got ideas and I've got dreams and ambitions and goals and all these kinds of things. It sounds like you guys are the same way. Ashley, what would you say is advice to somebody thinking about starting a business here in West Virginia?
Yes. Do your homework. Find a group like West Virginia Hive, so that way they can help you. You know, we came to the Hive after our business was already established. We had been business owners for 3 years.
Right?
Yeah, it worked out fine. There were a lot of things we figured out the hard way. But we have a great network of people that help us. And there's never a time that I feel like where Bill can't pick up the phone and call somebody who we feel like is a content specialist in that area, whether you know, it's money or taxes or calling another mom to find out how she balances things or pilots. We are so lucky to have such a strong community. So building that community so you don't experience burnout, so you don't feel alone. So there's always someone there to talk to. And this is silly, but like figure out how you like to exercise. Some people like to go to the gym. Some people like to go to CrossFit. Some people like to go run in the woods. Being able to unplug, even if it's just for 30 minutes, walk your dog. It doesn't have to be, you know, anything crazy, but making sure you're taking care of yourself physically while you're running this business is also so important.
That's great. Great wisdom from both you guys.
For sure.
I really appreciate that from you guys. You know, I guess one of the questions that keeps going through my mind is that you guys, you have a business, but you're also in aviation. You're teaching people how to fly, but you're also a tourism business too, right? Is that fair to say?
Sure.
Absolutely.
You mentioned West Virginia tourism and
more and more
what Chelsea Ruby and the team
her
in
team
West
is fantastic.
What they've done for tourism in West Virginia over the last I don't know 8 or 9 years has been amazing, you know, and it is one of the most important sectors of West Virginia's economy, especially small business. Right, is tourism, and how does that feel like to be such a, you know, you are in the hub of a national park, right? West Virginia's only national park, the I think the country's most recent national park still, right?
That's right.
And you know, it's kind of at the ground floor again, right? New River Gorge has been there since the dawn of time, but here we are in 2025, and it's kind of a new thing still. How does that feel to be in one of the most important sectors of West Virginia's economy?
That's great. That's a really good question. I think for me, it's part of the passion, right? Like, yes, I want to share my love of aviation and all of that, but I have a deep love for West Virginia and the town of Fayetteville. And I think our pride in those places really shows. One of the things that I really love is when people come from out of town, a lot of people come, their primary reason to come to Fayetteville is to fly with us. We're one of the only steerman ride business. And they're like, oh, we got to go to Fayetteville, West Virginia. And they show up.
Is that?
Yeah, where is that? And then they show up and they're like, how'd you get here? And I start telling the story that I've told
and
you.
They see all the great people.
And then it's like, we want you to go see so-and-so here, do this, or what have you thought about rafting or the bridge walk?
You got to eat this restaurant or this brewery.
It's unbelievable to watch people's impression and thought out knowledge of the area completely shift. And how many of those people now come back year after year and they're like, we love this place because of you. So
that's something we don't take for granted. We take that very seriously.
It's like being, I feel like we're like a representative of the state.
An ambassador.
An ambassador. And to be able to share that with people in such a unique way, that then is also tied into my passion of aviation. I mean, like it doesn't get better than that. Like you said, like you wake up and you're not going to work. You're going to go do your thing and share it with people.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yep.
Ashley, do you have anything to add on that?
No, I think that's great. Truly. I mean, I was trying to think about how when you go to some of these ghost towns in West Virginia, the thing that separates the ghost town from any other town is tourism.
Yeah.
But I couldn't work it out in my head, so I just gave up.
No, that's true. That's one of the things that breaks my heart when I drive through a ghost town in West Virginia and think like, what used to be here? Something was here driving the economy. Was it a factory or was it
coal?
Coal
and extraction?
Or some byproduct of coal, hydraulics.
Yeah. And you know, it's like,
how do we get that back?
How do we bring it back?
How do we revitalize West Virginia? And that's it. That's it. What you're doing.
Reimagine.
This is how we do it.
Yeah.
These conversations, these relationships.
Giving people an idea of
igniting people's curiosity about the opportunities in West Virginia.
Changing
That's
your
how I would-
assumptions.
Well, you know, those are great points, because it brings me to, you know, what one of the reasons I started this whole Positively West Virginia movement is that there are so many opportunities. You've used that word a bunch of times, Bill,
Yeah.
and opportunities are here. You know, we may not be able to attract a Fortune 50 company to build a plant here in West Virginia, but there are people like Bill and Ashley Chouinard who can take a company over and build the legacy. We talked about taking the legacy, but small businesses is where the opportunities lie, I think.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't take much. It takes a passion, a dream, a vision, a bold step, a plan, think it through. Like Ashley said, you know, do it the right way. And there is opportunity here. You don't have to leave.
Right. I think the beauty of small business, big businesses are fine. I know people who work for corporations that are happy
That's right.
and
Yeah.
they have found their passion
Absolutely.
in that big company. But the beauty of a small business is it becomes a direct representation of your dream. This isn't a big company's dream. Wild Blue is a direct expression. It's the first thing I said today, and it's often the first thing I say when describing it. This is the realization of a childhood dream.
Amazing.
What is better than that? And that is a very hard thing to find when you go to the big cities or you go outside of West Virginia, where that freedom isn't there to explore. Like, what do I want to do? What do I want to do with my spouse or my partner or whatever?
Yeah.
And how do we make that happen? And that opportunity does exist here in West Virginia, and it doesn't everywhere else.
I believe it too.
I think that a great thing that tourism allows us to do too is that so often kids, whether they're high school or elementary school or whatever, they only know what they see. They see teachers, they see police officers, they see doctors. And when you ask them what they want to be when they grow up, they say, I want to be ABC. And one thing that the tourism industry gives kids is the opportunity to see something else. And small businesses allow kids to think about those opportunities in different ways. Yes, I can start this company. Yes, I can go do this. Yes, my town has this problem. Here's how I'm going to solve that. I think that's very powerful.
My
vision.
passion fills is this need. Like you were asking earlier, like advice for people wanting to start a business. This is something that Ashley always kind of refocuses on me. Like, okay, this is your passion, but what need can it fill? Because ultimately you
What
do
problem
need
does it solve?
customers.
Yeah.
Yeah, what problem does it solve? And it's like, there's just a lot of opportunity in West Virginia for us to meet the needs of people that are looking to escape the rat race and all these other things. And so I encourage people to look for that. Those are opportunities.
That's
are endless.
amazing. Guys, as we close out our time here, is there anything else you think our listeners should know about your personal story or about Wild Blue?
Oh, that's a tough question.
I think.
Go ahead. I clicked
think-
out for a minute.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
came
no,
back
you're
in
good.
and now I clicked back out.
I mean, I think we're 10 years into starting Bravo Charlie and now Wild Blue Aviation and the Aviators Lounge. And I feel like we're just getting started.
Yeah.
I've never been more excited about the things that sort of behind closed doors we're talking about as opportunities and the network of people we've met. I can't wait to see what unfolds in the next 10 years, because I can tell you 5 years, 11 years, 29 years ago when I moved to Fayetteville, West Virginia to rock climb with $300 in a million opportunities, I could have never written this story.
That's so cool.
And I love that narrative or that idea that our lives are a story that we write and we can make it whatever we want. And I can't imagine a better co-author who is the litmus test for the biggest dreams we've got.
Yeah.
And I hope we're back in 10 years and you're like, Wild Blue 2, what do you got? Like because I think that West Virginia is the proving ground and going to be the stomping grounds for some amazing stories that get written.
Yeah.
And our story
I love
is
it.
just getting started.
I love it. Ashley, as we close out our time here, how can people learn more about Wild Blue Adventure and the Aviators Lounge and maybe even get in contact with you guys?
Yeah, so the fastest way to get a hold of us is to go to Wild Blue Adventure Company, all spelled out, all one word. So wildblueadventurecompany.com. We should, by the time this podcast airs, have our direct booking website for our rental property up too. And so that'll be aviatorsloungewv.com. And we're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. There's no shortage of ways to
I
get a
love
hold
it.
of us.
Yeah, we'll make sure we have
Yeah.
links to all that, and
Awesome.
maybe
That
your
would be
phone number
great.
too.
Thank
to
you.
folks
Yeah.
can book a stay and at the Aviators Lounge, or come down and fly with Bill. I think it's awesome. I can't wait to get down there.
Yeah,
and
you
do it.
definitely need
we
to
were just
come.
down to New River Gorge last March, and it was an awesome time. And love to come down and
Great.
take you up on that flight and do some barrel rolls. I don't know,
love
maybe
that
one.
You came in March because people think that because it's March, it's not a great time to come down, and
It
it's
was
actually
awesome.
a great time.
Yeah, it was,
early spring,
wonderful.
it's
Yeah,
beautiful.
early spring, and the river was beautiful, and just got to explore all of Fayetteville and all the surrounding areas and the New River Gorge area. Our guests once again, Bill and Ashley Chouinard. They own Wild Blue Adventure Company and Aviators Lounge. Guys, this has been an awesome conversation.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you
Thank you for
very
sharing
much.
all your
Yes.
wisdom and insights, and a lot about your amazing business. Like I said, it's really super cool and a great treasure here in West Virginia. So thank you. And I just think what you're doing is really amazing, and I want to encourage you to keep up the great work and
Awesome.
keep rolling. See where you end up in 10 years. Folks, that's a wrap on another episode of Positively West Virginia. If you or someone you know would be a great guest on our show, drop us a note on our website at positivelyWV.com. And of course, we appreciate you sharing the great stories out there like Bill and Ashley Chouinard and Wild Blue. And we also appreciate you encouraging us along the way as well. We really do. On behalf of our entire Positively West Virginia team, including our producer today, Mr. Jimmy Murray behind the controls. Jimmy also has his pilot license, by the way, for
Nice.
FAA
Alright.
drone
There you go.
pilot.
Okay,
He's a
alright.
drone pilot. And so Jimmy, thanks for everything you do for us. On behalf of our team, I'm your host, Jim Matuga. Stay positive, West Virginia.
We'd like to thank our partners, Highmark West Virginia, Freedom Key of Morgantown, Interaction Media, Storymaker, and our studio sponsor, BreezeLine, for helping to share these positive stories. If you'd like to become a sponsor of the Positively West Virginia podcast, visit positively.wv.com/sponsor.